very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. It's 9 p.m. IST and we are coming to you live from the WION headquarters in Noida, India. Let's get started. Our top story tonight focuses on the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's existential war. The question is, how far will the leader go in his quest to cling on to power? What lies ahead? And just how dangerous is this war? We break it all down for you and dissect this and more. This is coming up shortly. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Why is Canada honoring a Khalistani terrorist? We tell you how what transpired in the Canadian Parliament has triggered a series of serious questions. Why are millionaires leaving China? Where are the country's richy rich heading? We get you a special report. You do not want to miss this. We also get you the story of a wonder kid who is being referred to as the new Messi. This and more coming up tonight. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is fighting an existential war, one that he cannot afford to end, let alone lose, because if either of that happens, Netanyahu loses his office. And the big question is, how far will Netanyahu go in his quest to cling on to power? The signs that we are seeing tonight are extremely, extremely dangerous. SIPRI, or the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, says that Israel is working to modernize its nuclear weapon system. The modernization process reportedly began in recent months. Guess what else started in recent months? Israel's war in Gaza. 8 months and 38,000 plus deaths later, this war has now become crucial to Netanyahu's political existence. Like we told you yesterday, reports now say that Israeli Defense Forces had intel about the October 7 attacks. They knew that Hamas was planning to kidnap Israelis. It failed to stop the hostage crisis. The Netanyahu government failed to stop one of the worst attacks in the history. Bibi knows that he will be punished for his failure as soon as the war ends. Netanyahu's falling ratings, the backlash that he is facing at home, say as much. So the Israeli Prime Minister is finding ways to extend this existential war, including upgrading Israel's nuclear program. In fact, SIPRI says there is evidence that Israel is upgrading its plutonium for its nuclear reactor in Dimona. This is where Dimona is on the map. It is a southern town. It is near Dimona that Israel has its Shimon Peres Negev research facility. Its construction secretly started in the 1950s. It was during the midsummer 1960 that the US first learned of Israel's secret nuclear program at Dimona. Today, there is a nuclear reactor in Dimona. Also, underground laboratories that reprocess the reactor's spent rods to obtain plutonium. In fact, SIPRI claims Israel is reportedly upgrading its plutonium for its reactor in Dimona. The question is Israel preparing for the worst? And just who is the nuclear upgradation even aimed at? Look at what Israel's foreign minister wrote on the platform X. I'm quoting, "We are getting very close to the moment of deciding on changing the rules of the game against Hezbollah and Lebanon." Which rules is he really referring to? Nuclear? Israel has a policy of nuclear ambiguity. It neither confirms nor denies having nuclear bombs. So is Israel threatening an escalation, the kind of which has never been seen before? We don't know. What we can tell you is that the Israeli Defense Forces have approved operational plans for an offensive against Hezbollah. This is after Hezbollah released a 9-minute-long footage from its surveillance drone's flight over the city of Haifa. What happens next is the immediate question. You see, the Hezbollah are backed by Iran. They are part of Iran's axis of resistance. Declaring war on Hezbollah will pull in the other players of this axis. The Houthis, who are already fighting Israel and its allies at sea, the Badr organization, Kateb Hezbollah, and Aseb al-Haq in Iraq. The armed groups in Syria, they all will be pulled in when Israel actively goes to war with Hezbollah. What about Iran? Americans have reportedly warned the Israelis that continuing the exchange of fire with Hezbollah could lead to a wide-scale Iranian attack. Is Israel even in a position to defend itself from such an attack? The last time Iran sent drones and missiles to strike Israel, Americans, the British, the Jordanians had to join hands to defend Israel. So where is the guarantee that they will help once again? Jordan's king, remember, faced protests at home for helping Israel. What about the Americans? The White House has cancelled a high-level meeting with Israel. The two sides were supposed to discuss Iran. This meeting was scheduled for Thursday, that's tomorrow. But now Americans have backed out. And why is that? Because of this video. Take a look.
The administration has been withholding weapons and ammunition to Israel. Israel, America's closest ally, fighting for its life, fighting against Iran and our other common enemies.
Netanyahu's video claiming that the US is withholding military aid. Americans have clearly had enough. One Israeli official, in fact, told the media that the Americans are fuming. Another official in the US said Bibi is being punished for his stunts. Now, coming back to the question, will the Americans step in if Iran launches a wide-scale attack? Israeli daily Haaretz is reporting that US President Joe Biden's senior advisor, Amos Hochstein, has told Israeli officials that Tel Aviv will find it difficult to intercept a wide-scale Iranian attack. In other words, Israel needs to de-escalate. But how will de-escalation help Netanyahu? What helps Netanyahu is to project this situation as an existential threat.
A moment of silence in memory of Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Why is Canada honoring a Khalistani terrorist? You know what happened in the Canadian Parliament? It observed a moment of silence in the memory of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Can you believe that? It marked the 1-year anniversary of the killing of the Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar by holding a moment of silence in the House of Commons. Why should a terrorist be honored? And you know what the Indian Consulate General in Vancouver has done after this? It has announced a memorial service to pay tribute to the 329 victims of the Khalistani bombing of Air India Kanishka flight in 1985. Let me first tell you what it said on the platform X. India stands at the forefront of countering the menace of terrorism and works closely with all nations to tackle this global threat. It went on to say, 23rd June 2024 marks the 39th anniversary of the cowardly terrorist bombing of Air India Flight 182 Kanishka, in which 329 innocent victims, including 86 children, lost their lives in one of the most heinous terror-related air disasters in the history of civil aviation. And then it added, a memorial service is scheduled at 6:30 p.m. on the 23rd of June 2024 at the Air India Memorial at Stanley Park's Kirpetli Playground area. It encouraged members of the Indian diaspora to join the event in a show of solidarity against terrorism. You heard that. Solidarity against terrorism. And the thing is, that is exactly what Canada should be showing. At the very least, it should be sending out a strong message against terrorism, but instead it chooses to honor a terrorist and observe silence in his memory. Let me just get you some context here. Hardeep Singh Nijjar was designated as a terrorist by India's National Investigation Agency in the year 2020. The Justin Trudeau-led Canadian administration has alleged that the Indian government agents could be involved in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. New Delhi, meanwhile, trashed the Canadian allegations over the killing of Nijjar, describing them as motivated and absurd. In fact, India has repeatedly flagged the space given to anti-India elements in Canada. We have been telling you about Trudeau's vote bank politics as well. Justin Trudeau's party does not have a majority in the parliament. The Liberals depend on Jagmeet Singh's New Democratic Party to stay in power, which partly explains the appeasement politics. But it is high time that Canada woke up and realized that it cannot keep supporting terrorists, leave alone honor them in the parliament. How long before Trudeau realizes that siding with terrorists comes at a heavy cost? Is Tibet heading for a crisis? I'm asking that question because there is an escalating war of words going on between the US and China regarding Tibet's autonomy. Tensions, in fact, reached boiling point on Wednesday when a bipartisan delegation of American lawmakers met the Dalai Lama in India. The delegation, which included former US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, made strong statements asserting that the United States will not allow China to influence the selection of the Dalai Lama's successor. These remarks are certain to provoke Beijing, which has labeled the exiled Tibetan spiritual leader as, quote-unquote, a separatist. And in a bold move, Pelosi warned China, stating, things have changed. China, be ready for that. Listen in.
His Holiness the Dalai Lama, with his message of knowledge and tradition and compassion and purity of soul and love, he will live a long time and his legacy will live forever. But to you, President of China, you'll be gone and nobody will give you credit for anything. So in that spirit now the Dalai Lama would not approve of my saying that. When I criticize the Chinese government, he says, let's pray for Nancy to rid her of her negative attitudes. But I think I hope he will indulge me today to say the change is on the way. As our colleagues have said, hope springs from faith. And the faith of the Tibetan people in the goodness of others is what is going to make all the difference.
These remarks, by the way, come at a time when Washington and Beijing say they are trying to steady the ties. And as India pushes China to secure lasting peace on the disputed Himalayan frontier, 4 years after the military clash in Galwan strained ties, The lawmakers have made it clear that Washington will not hesitate to exert pressure on Beijing to engage in talks with Tibetan leaders and resolve the Tibet issue. Just how do they hope to achieve that exactly? Through a bipartisan bill known as the Resolve Tibet Act. Nancy Pelosi said that the bipartisan approval for the Resolve Tibet Act sends out a strong message to China. It indicates that Washington stands firmly on the issue. Now the bill only awaits President Joe Biden's signature in order to become law. The Resolve Tibet Act is designed to forcefully pressure China to resume talks. It has been stagnant since 2010, remaining frozen for 14 years. US President Joe Biden is expected to sign that bill soon. Interestingly, in a departure from his predecessors, President Biden is yet to meet with the Dalai Lama. The Central Tibetan Administration is hopeful that the Resolve Tibet Act, once signed, will serve as a strong affirmation of America's dedication to Tibetan people. Remember, the US has been a long-standing supporter of the Tibetan people's rights to religious as well as cultural practice. In fact, the US has also condemned China for alleged human rights violations in the remote Himalayan region bordering India. But even though the US supports the Tibetan people's rights, it also officially recognizes the Tibetan Autonomous Region as part of China. A rather confusing policy of America. Although Washington recognizes Tibet as a part of China, analysts say that the Resolve Tibet bill appears to question that position. Therefore, if the bill becomes a law, it would come as a major shock to China. Beijing is already upset about the meeting of the US delegation with the Dalai Lama. You see, Beijing considers the Dalai Lama as a dangerous separatist. Born in 1935 as Lamo Thondup, the Dalai Lama was recognized as the reincarnation of his predecessor at the age of 2. And in 1940, he became the 14th Dalai Lama in Lhasa. In 1950, China invaded Tibet, leading the Dalai Lama to seek refuge in India in 1959 after an unsuccessful uprising against Chinese rule. And since then, he has lived in exile in India's Dharamshala. In 1989, he received the Nobel Peace Prize. Fast forward to 2024, the American delegation's visit has, of course, upset China because the Dalai Lama wants real self-governance for Tibet. China accuses him of trying to divide Tibet. China strongly opposes the Dalai Lama's meetings with foreign leaders, in fact, including US presidents. But perhaps the most controversial issue is choosing his successor. China claims the right to approve a successor so that it can tighten its grip on Tibet. However, the Dalai Lama insists that only the Tibetan people can decide. As per tradition, the Dalai Lama is reborn after his passing. The current Dalai Lama has suggested that his successor may be found in India. China, however, says the next Dalai Lama will be appointed by the atheist communist leaders, as has been done in the past. And to add fuel to fire, the American delegation's visit and the bill to be signed by Joe Biden have raised serious concern in Beijing. The spokesperson of the Chinese embassy in India expressed Beijing's concerns, asking the US to quote-unquote stop sending the wrong signal to the world. And a day before the meeting, the Chinese Foreign Ministry warned that affairs related to Tibet were an internal matter and that Beijing would take resolute measures to defend its sovereignty. But the US delegation, clearly unmoved, said that China can express its unhappiness, but the US will stand for what is right. And this war of words making Tibet a very important flashpoint. Here on Gravitas, we have been telling you how China has been systematically destroying Tibetan institutions, from framing laws to curbing Tibetan traditions to even selling lies about the culture. It has also gone on to vilify the Dalai Lama, calling him, quote-unquote, a wolf in monk's clothing. Beijing sees the Dalai Lama as a threat because he has been campaigning for Tibetan autonomy, for the right of the Tibetans to exercise their religion, preserve their culture, institutions and beliefs. That is the true nature of the Chinese communist regime, you see. It continues to spread disinformation around Tibet, so much so that American lawmakers are now rallying behind the bipartisan bill directly challenging Chinese disinformation on Tibet. The big question is all of this building up to something big? Will the US move provoke China to brew trouble? We all remember how China reacted to Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan in 2022. Will China respond with something similar in Tibet? Will the next war happen in Tibet? With just 15 days left until the UK general election, it's clear that the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is facing an uphill battle in his campaign. In fact, Sunak's campaign trail has been so awkward, even a flock of sheep seemed to have run away from him as he tried to feed them. And naturally, netizens had a field day as this video went viral. What are the opinion polls indicating? According to them, his party faces an extinction-level wipeout at the election. Extinction level. The Tories' efforts to revitalize the party campaign have fallen short. Sunak's personal ratings have hit record lows. The voters in the UK, well, they've had enough. After almost 3 years, the UK inflation level is back to the government's 2% target. But the good news, yes, there is good news for the Rishi Sunak government. It may have come too little too late. With time not on his side, Rishi Sunak welcomed the support of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Tuesday. And when asked by reporters about this unexpected intervention from his former boss at Downing Street, the British Prime Minister said, and I'm quoting, "It's great Boris is supporting the Conservative Party." He went on to say, he has endorsed many candidates in videos and letters which have been coordinated by the campaign, and I know that will make a difference. Boris Johnson has put his name to thousands of letters to be sent out to voters, urging them not to support Nigel Farage's Reform UK on the 4th of July. In fact, the former British Prime Minister has also recorded videos backing Tory candidates. But Boris Johnson is yet to appear on the campaign trail in person. And why is that? That's because Sunak's one-time political mentor has decided to take yet another summer holiday. You heard that right. Rather than hit the campaign trail, Johnson is currently on holiday in Sardinia. Well, at least according to his wife Carrie's Instagram account. Still, the Tories, it seems, are optimistic that Johnson's intervention could turn the tide in their favour. As it stands today, polling data indicating the former Prime Minister does retain an appeal with swing Tory voters, something that Sunak does not possess. Even though he has the appeal among some voters, can Johnson really turn things around for the Conservative Party? Remember, for a lot of voters, Johnson is still a toxic figure, particularly for his role as far as Brexit is concerned. Also, the Partygate scandal during the COVID-19 pandemic. Who can forget that? So is Boris Johnson then the last best option for the Tories? We can't say for sure. You see, the Conservatives were expecting Johnson to attend election events and rally the 2019 voters to support the Tories, but that has not happened. Johnson is currently showing his support for the party while vacationing in Sardinia. While Sunak remains optimistic, remember, there has been a lot of tension between Johnson and Sunak. After all, Sunak's resignation as Chancellor during Johnson's tenure had accelerated Johnson's departure from 10 Downing Street. Johnson has not forgotten Sunak's disloyalty. He remembers Sunak's betrayal, I'm sure. Considering these circumstances, it seems that Boris Johnson has deliberately chosen to be away on holiday, which could be perceived as a snub to Rishi Sunak. How then do the Tories expect Boris Johnson to actually make a difference? He could back Sunak's line that the plan is working, but is it really working? And what even is the plan? Take a look at the Conservative Party's track record here. Boris Johnson won the election in 2019 and became Prime Minister. He resigned after losing support of his MPs. He was succeeded by Liz Truss, who later was replaced by Rishi Sunak. Now, once again, the Tories are hoping to ride on Johnson's appeal to come to power. All three Tory leaders have proven to be ineffective, both for the Tories and for the country. Johnson's intervention is quite ironic. The once dismissed and disgraced Prime Minister is telling members to vote for another criticized Prime Minister, especially as the former has only recently criticized the latter's landmark policy as quote-unquote absolutely nuts. Is a crisis then imminent on the 4th of July? We shall find out. Shifting focus for now, China's millionaires are leaving the country. As per estimates, 13,800 high net worth individuals left China in 2023. 15,200 are expected to leave China this year. What could the reason be behind this exodus? Our next report explores.
The richy rich are leaving China. As per estimates, 13,800 high net worth individuals left China in 2023. High net worth individuals, or HNWIs, are those who have assets worth at least $1 million. 13,800 of them left China last year. 15,200 are expected to leave China this year. So why are the rich leaving China? Investment migration firm Henley & Partners point at two big factors: the state of the Chinese economy and geopolitical tensions. In December 2023, Moody's cut China's economic outlook to negative. In April, Fitch Rating downgraded China's sovereign credit outlook to negative. Earlier this year, the International Monetary Fund said that China is facing high uncertainty. And why is that? Mainly due to the downturn in Chinese property sector, which accounts for 20% of the world's second largest economy. In the first quarter of this year, China's economy grew at 5.3%, but domestic demand remained subdued. In the first quarter, property investment fell 9.5%. Now, with the rich Chinese leaving the world, the economy will surely take a further hit. How much money are the millionaires moving out of the Chinese economy? It is not clear yet. But analysts say that high net worth individuals who move are mostly worth between $30 million and $1 billion in wealth. So multiply that sum by 13,800 and 15,200. Where are these people going? Many millionaires who left China in 2023 moved to the US, Canada, or Singapore. How does China feel about this? The US tops China's list of adversaries. Tensions are once again on the rise between Washington and Beijing. Disagreements involve issues ranging from TikTok and Taiwan to trade and technology. Tibet too has now become a flashpoint. On the heels of it all, rich Chinese queuing up to move to the US is embarrassing for the Xi Jinping administration. Singapore, like we mentioned, is on the list of destinations too. The city-state has always been a favorite among the wealthy looking to move out of China. Singapore is geographically close to China. There are cultural links between the two countries. Mandarin is widely spoken in Singapore. Last year, a lot of the richy rich from China also moved to the United Arab Emirates. It is not surprising, given that the UAE is becoming increasingly popular among the rich. There's zero income tax in the UAE. There's also golden visa for investors. Immigration consultants say a large number of Chinese, both rich and in the middle income group, are also inquiring about moving to Japan. The Chinese are attracted to the low crime rate in Japan. Also, Japan's large public parks and the sprawling golf courses. While the state of the economy is playing a big part in driving the elite out of mainland China, in Hong Kong it is dwindling freedom and crackdown on dissent. The city is home to 129,500 millionaires, 290 centimillionaires, and 32 billionaires. But how many of them are willing to continue staying in Hong Kong? In 2023, 500 millionaires moved out. Analysts expect the trend to continue.
Let's now look at Nvidia's meteoric rise. The chip maker became the world's most valuable company on Tuesday, surpassing tech giants Microsoft and Apple. Nvidia's market capitalization reached $3.33 trillion, driven by a 3.2% rise in its stock price. Just to put that into perspective, Nvidia is as rich as India. Indeed, Nvidia's market value equals the gross domestic product of India, which is the fifth largest economy in the world. The stock has surged since its IPO in 1999. The firm's shares, in fact, also became the best performing stock of the last quarter century. This year alone, the chipmaker added $2 trillion to its market cap. Nvidia's rise is fueled by the skyrocketing demand for its artificial intelligence chips, which have a dominant market share of 80% for the AI processors used in global data centers. In fact, the company's shares have surged 173% this year as compared to a 19% increase for Microsoft. Nvidia's rapid growth in AI technology is reshaping the competitive landscape in the tech industry. The company's remarkable ascent is highlighted by its significant revenue growth. In the latest quarter, the company reported a 427% increase in revenue from its data center business. Nvidia's stock has multiplied more than ninefold since the end of 2022, a period that coincides with the rise of generative AI. The company's market cap expanded from $1 trillion to $2 trillion in just 9 months, and then to $3 trillion in a little over 3 months, showcasing its rapid growth trajectory. The firm's impressive market performance has not only elevated its valuation, but also significantly increased the net worth of its co-founder and CEO, Jensen Huang, to about $117 billion. The company's 10-for-1 stock split has made its shares more accessible to individual investors. A stock split basically means more shares to current shareholders and improves the trading liquidity and accessibility. Meanwhile, Microsoft and Apple experienced slight declines in their market values. A new study indicates that astronomers might have chanced upon a never-before phenomenon, the awakening of a black hole. In this report, we break down for you the developments and also get you why it matters. A black hole is a massive region in space with a highly powerful gravity. Typically, black holes can be hundreds of thousands times larger than our sun. With their massive size and supremely powerful gravity, black holes consume anything that is near it. Even light cannot escape from a black hole. Typically, black holes cannot be seen. They only appear under certain periods of activity. Black holes are not rare. Each galaxy has a black hole at its center. For example, take the Milky Way galaxy, where our solar system belongs. Even at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, there is a black hole. But this black hole is not active. In simple terms, it is dormant or asleep. Since late 2019, astronomers have observed some peculiar activity at a galaxy in the Virgo constellation that's some 300 light years away from us. And being 300 light years away means one would have to travel 300 years at the speed of light to reach that destination. More than 4 years ago, this galaxy started shining brighter than ever before, and astronomers started observing this phenomenon very closely. They noted how dramatically this galaxy's brightness and emissions have been changing over the last 4 years. In fact, researchers in the domain arrived at a few interesting possibilities. That this could probably be the first ever real-time observation of a black hole being activated. So how and why do black holes emit light and get activated? This bright light emission happens when black holes are feeding. Black holes have a supremely strong gravity and can eat up anything in their vicinity, from gases to even entire stars. And when these gases or stars are being eaten up, during their final moments, bright light is emitted. And that is how astronomers got alerted about this phenomenon. In this case, the galaxy has been showing up in a bright manner for more than 4 years, and they suspect it could indeed be the activation of a black hole, the first ever sighting of this kind in history. But as is always the rule in science, nothing can be concluded firmly. There is always more study to be done and more inferences to be drawn up. Eventually, this could offer an opportunity to observe and study the evolution of black holes in real time. And speaking of things a billion miles away, NASA scientists have achieved a rather remarkable feat. They have been able to revive Voyager 1, the space probe launched in 1977 to explore the outer solar system. And they have done this from over 15 billion miles away from Earth. After NASA's repairs, Voyager 1 has resumed sending important scientific data from unexplored areas following a 7-month pause due to a computer glitch. It's truly astounding. Voyager 1 is the farthest spacecraft from planet Earth. In November 2023, it stopped communicating clearly with mission control, and they described it as being stuck in a situation that they called Groundhog Day, where the same negative experiences kept happening. The probe's telemetry modulation unit, part of the flight data system, was sending back a repeating pattern of code that could not be understood from billions of miles away. And fixing this issue is difficult because the flight data system is responsible for collecting and bundling information from the spacecraft's science instruments and engineering data reflecting the probe's health status. At NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, Mission Control on Earth receives this data in binary code, a series of ones and zeros basically, and it took time and some creative thinking for the scientists to decode the spacecraft's confusing code. But once they did, they were able to locate the cause of the issue. They found that 3% of the flight data system's memory was corrupted. You see, a single chip responsible for storing part of the system's memory, including some of the computer's software code, is not working properly. The loss of the code on the chip is what caused Voyager 1's science and engineering data to be unusable. With no way to fix the chip, the scientists split the code up so that it could be stored elsewhere. Let me break this down. Since they could not pinpoint a location large enough to hold all the code, they divided it into sections. They then stored the memory in different spots within the flight data system. There are still minor fixes needed to manage the effects of the initial issue. In April this year, NASA got it to start sending back health and status data. However, data from Voyager 1's 4 science instruments, which study plasma waves, magnetic fields and particles, remained elusive. And because of this, the mission was suffering. You see, this information is important to show scientists just how particles and magnetic fields change as the probe flies farther away. On May 19, the Voyager team sent a command to the spacecraft to start returning science data, and 2 of its instruments responded, but getting data back from the other 2 took time. The instruments required recalibration. And today, all 4 instruments on Voyager 1 are beaming back usable science data. Voyager 1 is powered by radioactive material which is slowly decaying and reducing their power output. It is currently about 15 billion miles, that is 24 billion kilometers away from planet Earth. Its sister vehicle, the Voyager 2, has traveled more than 12 billion miles from Earth. The 2 probes, launched weeks apart in 1977, have flown by Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. Both probes are now in interstellar space, the only spacecraft to operate beyond the heliosphere, that is the sun's bubble of magnetic fields and particles that extend well beyond Pluto's orbit. They are the sole extensions of humanity outside the heliosphere's protective bubble, and they are alone out there as they travel in different directions. Voyager 1 moved up after passing Saturn, while Voyager 2 passed over the top of Neptune and moved down. They are helping scientists learn about the comet-like shape of the heliosphere and how it protects planet Earth from energized particles and radiation in interstellar space. After 47 years, the Voyager is beginning to show its age. For several years now, the operations team has been gradually shutting off heaters, its backups and other non-essential elements so that they can preserve its power for key operational and scientific instruments. Around 2026, however, they will have to begin shutting down science instruments. The Voyagers will keep transmitting even once all their scientific systems are shut down. But by around 2036, they will pass beyond the range of receivers on Earth, continuing their journey further into the universe in radio silence. On Tuesday, we got you a glimpse of the dark side of football. Today, we tell you why the beautiful game mesmerizes.